Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Speak. I'm so excited about this episode. And I wanted to just pop in here and do a quick little intro because I actually recorded this particular episode about a year ago. And in this episode, I'm sharing my personal experiences working with the medicine of psilocybin. I go through several different experiences that I've had. Um, and this is something that I'm really passionate when it comes to sharing on this topic because for me personally, working with psilocybin in a very intentional, ceremonial way has been incredibly healing and powerful. And I've experienced some of the biggest shifts in my life and very quickly. Um, and I also will say that working with any kind of plant medicine, while you can have an incredible, powerful, transformative experience in that moment working with that medicine, there is also integrative work that is necessary to continue after the experience to help you to fully integrate everything and to allow you to embody it in your daily life. So it's not just like this one-time incredible experience that you have, and then you're thrown back out into the real world and don't know how to integrate all of that and to actually operate from that newfound wisdom, that deeper layer of consciousness that you tapped into during that experience. So there are so many layers to this, and working with psilocybin for me personally has been so incredibly powerful. I have a deep honor and reverence for this medicine. It's, to me, not something that you just mess around with. I think that if people want to take it just for fun, that's totally fine. And I've done that before. But I've just really realized over the years that there's so much more to it. And after having both of those experiences of just kind of taking it for fun, not really knowing what I was doing or being intentional, and then being really intentional and doing it in a ceremonial setting and for the purposes of healing and expanding my consciousness and feeling a deeper awareness and connection to everything and all of that, having that contrast of both of those experiences has really allowed me to appreciate what psilocybin really has to offer us. There's so much research happening in this field, and it's very, very exciting to see. And I do think at some point I will incorporate working with other people with this medicine in some way. And I think I even say that in this episode, which was a year ago when I recorded it. So there's something there that's been in the background for me for a while. I've always felt really called to this particular medicine, and I have understood firsthand how incredibly potent it is. So there's something there, but we'll see how all of that unfolds. But I just wanted to give a quick little intro, let you know that this was like about a year ago when I recorded this, but I think it's really important to talk about these things. I really want to share my experiences with you. If you're thinking about working with psilocybin or just have questions and you're curious about it. Um, so yeah, that is everything I will say for now. I hope that you enjoy this episode. I did not film myself during this because I don't even think back then Spotify was doing video podcasting. So this is just audio. So this is a great episode to listen to if you're cleaning the house or going for a walk or driving or whatever. So just put it on, enjoy, get outside, go for a walk, do something like that. And if you have any questions, reach out, let me know. I would love to hear if you have worked with psilocybin, what your experiences have been like. So you can send me a message over on Instagram, or if you are listening to this on YouTube, drop a comment. But without further ado, we will get into the episode and my experiences working with psilocybin. Thank you so much for dropping in with me, and let's get into it. You are now entering the place we gather to hear the magic of our souls through subconscious work, ritualistic living, creative reclamation, and curious wonderment. This is Soul Speak. Do you ever realize you're looking for something that you want, only to realize it's just right in front of you and it's been there the whole time? I feel like that's a great analogy for life. I was just looking for a specific crystal, and I was looking all around me. I couldn't remember where I put it, and it was literally sitting right in front of me. Just something to think about. So, I wanted to talk about something very special today. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about today's episode. I asked you on Instagram if you wanted to see listen to a podcast episode about my mushroom experience, and a lot of you said yes, which is super cool because, I don't know, that made me excited that you want to learn a little bit more about the world of psychedelics and psilocybin in particular. So I think for this episode, what I'm going to do is talk about my experience with psilocybin sort of in general. Like I've had a few intentional mushroom ceremonies, I guess, if you want to call them that. That's kind of the way that I describe them. And so I'll talk about sort of a general overview of what that has been like for me. Of course, I can only ever speak from my experience, so this is not to say that your experience would be anything like mine, and that is perfect, but maybe this would give you some insight or answer some questions you might have, or just make you a little bit curious about exploring psilocybin. Or if anything, I hope that this can shift your perspective a little bit from perhaps viewing psychedelics as something that people just do to like get high and trip the fuck out and have a crazy wild experience, and help you to realize that it can actually be a very incredibly healing, profound, sacred medicine when used intentionally and used in a specific way, which is the way that I now use it. So I'll start with my sort of more general, broad experience with psilocybin overall, and then I would like to share with you my most recent experience because it was a really special one, and it was my first ever solo psilocybin experience, and I just had a really beautiful healing time, and a lot came up for me that I feel like by sharing it might help somebody or just get you thinking about some things maybe in your own life, which is why I share the things that I do. So to give you a little background, I did mushrooms twice back in college, and it was so not the experience that it can be, mainly because there was no intention behind it. I was just doing it again in a way that I think a lot of people do it, which was just to like go on a trip and like have a cool experience, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I just didn't realize at the time that psilocybin can be used in a much more intentional way for healing purposes and to help you access deeper layers of love for yourself and for life and other people. So I just didn't have that awareness at the time, and that's totally fine. You know, that's where I was at. And also I think it had a lot to do with who I was doing it with. I was doing it with my boyfriend at the time, who just wasn't someone I would choose to do that with now. It just wasn't the vibe, it just wasn't the vibe. So we've learned from that experience, but that was my first introduction to psilocybin. I was just curious and had no idea what I was doing. And also the setting really wasn't the best. Like I remember we did it at his apartment, and I wanted to like explore and like go outside, and I felt really restless, and he just wanted to sit there and watch a movie, which, knowing what I know now, I'm like, oh my God, why would you ever do mushrooms and then watch a movie. Like, that just sounds terrible. And I remember I just had such a hard time like focusing on the movie, and it just was not what I wanted to be doing. So something to keep in mind if you are thinking about doing psilocybin is definitely think about your environment, who you're with, and why you're doing it. You know, like, get clear on your intention. Even if your intention is just to simply have fun and be open to whatever can happen and whatever the experience is meant to be, that's a beautiful intention. But set the intention beforehand. Don't just go into it like not even thinking about why you're doing it and just eating a bunch of shrooms and then you're like, okay, what the fuck, you know? So that was my introduction into mushrooms, and kind of forgot about the experience. Really didn't have much of an impact on my life. I was just kind of like, whatever, like, probably won't do that again. Until several years later, you know, after I had fully embraced my spirituality and was well on my spiritual path, I was called to psilocybin again through one of my friends, and this experience was so incredibly different. It was during her bachelorette party, actually, and when I say bachelorette party, I know a lot of people have preconceived notions of what that probably looked like, and I just want to say this was so not your typical bachelorette. We did not go out, we did not drink, we didn't like party in the sense that you think you would during something like that. We ended up going out to the desert for a weekend, and it was just a group of, I think there were maybe like 6 or 7 women. And we had an Airbnb with a pool, and we spent the weekend just dropping in together and really allowing ourselves to connect in sisterhood and divine feminine energy. And it was just honestly like such a beautiful weekend. We went hiking and, you know, like danced around the living room and played fun like bachelorette type games. Honestly, just spent really quality time together. And one of the nights we did a mushroom ceremony, and it was completely optional. Like, obviously, if someone didn't want to participate, they did not have to. I felt really called to participate, and I was very curious about doing this in an intentional way, and I wasn't even really sure what that looked like, but I wanted to find out. I will go into more detail how to do this intentionally when I share my most recent experience. I'll walk you through like exactly what I did, but we approached this ceremony with a lot of intention and a lot of gratitude for the sacred medicine of psilocybin. And I had one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. It wasn't that I necessarily learned anything that I didn't already know, because I had already been, you know, I was already pretty far along in my spiritual path. I understood that we're connected to everything. I understood a lot of these like deeper universal truths. So it wasn't like I was discovering this stuff for the first time, but that experience really helped me anchor those truths like fully into my being, because I went into the experience knowing these things, but during that experience, I was able to fully feel the truth, if that makes any sense. And I know if you've never done this, it might not make sense, and that's okay. It's one of those things that you kind of have to experience for yourself. But it's like I went from knowing these things to feeling these things. And there is, I say this often, but there is a huge difference between knowing something and feeling it. So, you know, it was like I knew that we were all connected and all one and come from the same source. But during this experience, I could feel that in my body. It was like these spiritual teachings and lessons and all of this spiritual wisdom that I had acquired. It was like it all just became so anchored into my being, and there wasn't any room for doubt. You're just in truth. Like, you just see truth so clearly and you're so connected to it, and it just makes sense. So I had that experience, and that was my first introduction into using psilocybin intentionally. And then I had another experience a little bit later with the same friend, different group of people, and that experience was very different. The first experience was so much fun, and I literally laughed so hard with these women, like to the point that like my abs were hurting. And it's the most love I had ever felt in my body up until that point. It was just so beautiful and so uplifting. My second experience was equally as beautiful, but different. I spent a lot of the time actually like kind of going off on my own away from the group, and just really felt called to kind of sit with myself. And I ended up crying a lot. I didn't even really understand why I was crying. I didn't feel like there was anything specific in that present moment that it's not like I was sad about something or anything like that. It really just felt more like old past stuff that I had been carrying for so long, like probably from past lives even. And I just was releasing so much. And it was like I had this awareness that I didn't even really need to understand what I was releasing. I just knew I needed to let myself cleanse and clear it all out. And so I did that. And then I spent most of that experience, we were actually in Sedona. So I spent most of that experience sitting outside on the deck by myself, wrapped in a giant blanket because it was February and cold. And I just was staring up at the night sky, at all the stars, and listening to music. And I kind of did that for most of the time, and it was incredible. And so many insights and downloads came through. And more than anything, I just anchored so deeply into love. I want to read you something because I wrote this note to myself during this experience in Sedona. I wrote it as a note for myself to read whenever I'm feeling low, but I want to share it with you because it could be applied to anyone. And a lot of it is just a really great reminder to you, because these are things that I feel like are always true, but we often forget them because we live in a world that is kind of designed to make us always forget our power and our truth. I am going to read this to you as a little love letter to you whenever you need it, and I hope that you enjoy it. Dearest you, whoever you are, whatever your name is, you came here, my love, to shine bright. You can do anything, be anything you choose. Truly, you have the world at your fingertips. It's whatever you choose, so choose. Dive in, try, experience. Fall and pick yourself back up. There is no failing, only learning, only loving. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you can lay your head on your pillow knowing that you embodied love and held the intention of service in your heart. Please never doubt yourself. It's a silly waste of time. A funny little game you play with yourself to trick yourself into thinking you are confused. But this only delays the truth which you already know. You have the cosmic wisdom of infinite lifetimes embedded in your soul. You are divine feminine. You are the creatrix, the maiden and the crone. You embody it all. You are poise and grace, strength and courage. Take a deep breath. Hold your heart. Remember who you are. Remember what you came here to do. It's so much bigger than your human self. Remember how supported and loved you are. You are infinitely supported always, always. Thank yourself for being here at this time. You are infinite consciousness embodied. That is a miracle. Never forget. I actually hadn't read that in a while, and I forgot, what it even said, and even just reading that to myself, I'm like, wow. Ooh, what great reminders. Something else I want to share, because I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you probably will relate to this a lot. And this is something that came through during my very first intentional ceremony, the one that I did during the bachelorette party. This is for you if you have ever felt alone or sort of like an outcast or outsider. I feel called to share this because I feel like this might give you a more empowering perspective of maybe why you feel that way instead of making it a bad thing or making it wrong and wishing that you could fit in more. So this is what came through for me. I am an outsider, and that's okay. That's actually why I'm here, is to be an outsider in order to bring in new perspectives. That is a huge part of my purpose. I create shifts for other people and myself. I help the world look at things differently. I came to this earth from somewhere else far away, and I came to bring a higher perspective, a new vision of how it can be. I hope that helps if you do feel like an outsider, especially if you're on a spiritual journey. I completely understand that feeling of looking at the people around you and just feeling like you don't relate at all, and sometimes feeling like you don't even have people in your life who you can talk to about what's actually going on for you because they won't, or at least you feel like they won't understand, which isn't always true, by the way. Sometimes you have to open up and give people a chance, and you'll be surprised that they can actually meet you where you're at. But that's a whole other topic. But I totally understand if you feel alone and like an outsider, and I want to invite you to start looking at that as actually a superpower and part of your purpose and part of why you're here, rather than beating yourself up for it and making it wrong and wishing you could be like everybody else. My love, you're not here to be like everybody else. You are here to be you and share your specific magic and uniqueness. And now I want to talk about my most recent experience. Also, something else to keep in mind, I did this most recent ceremony by myself. I do not recommend doing it by yourself if you've never done psilocybin before. I recommend doing it with someone who has experience with it and who you feel really safe with, because again, like, you don't know what's going to come up. You don't really know what to expect or what you're going to experience. And being with the right people is vital to having a positive experience, and just knowing that if difficult emotions do come up, or you're feeling discomfort or having a tough time moving through something, you want to be with someone who you can kind of lean into, and they can hold the space for you and help you move through whatever's coming up for you. So something to keep in mind if you've never done this before and you are thinking about doing it. And something that came up for me this most recent experience actually is that I feel really called to one day hold space for people who want to use this medicine for healing and transformation. Yeah, that feels really expansive and exciting, and like an honor to me to be able to do that. And I do think, we're already seeing psychedelics becoming a little bit more and more socially acceptable. They're doing so many studies on how beneficial psychedelics can be for healing. And I think we're only going to see more and more of that as we move forward. And again, it's all about how you use it. Just like with anything, it's like we can use social media to promote positivity and healing, or we can use it to promote darkness and toxicity, right? Like, it's all about the intention. It's all about how you're choosing to show up and use it. So same thing goes with psychedelics. So with that all being said, if you do have some experience with psilocybin and you feel called to have a solo experience, I definitely recommend it. It's one of the most healing, beautiful, special experiences that I've had up until this moment. If you're feeling called, I think it's a fantastic thing to try. And like with any mind-altering substance, the mindset that you're in when you go into the experience is very important. It's like same thing when you're drinking alcohol. If you're in a bad mood and had a terrible day, or you're fighting with your partner, or got fired from your job, or whatever, and then you drink, it's just going to exacerbate where you're currently at, which is why a lot of the time we see people get super drunk and then they get really angry, they're causing fights, they're lashing out. That isn't because of the alcohol. That was already there under the surface, and that mind-altering substance just brings that out. So it's the same thing with psychedelics. Whatever mindset you're in when you go into it, and whatever is kind of under the surface as far as your emotional state and mental state, it's very likely that that's going to come out and come to the surface for you to really confront and look at. So again, if you are going through something really heavy and dark and challenging, It's not to say that you shouldn't do psychedelics. In fact, I think sometimes that can be incredibly healing to help you move through challenges. But I really, really encourage you to sit with yourself and make sure that it does truly feel aligned and feel like something supportive. And if you are going through something heavy, I definitely recommend having a support system while you go through the experience and just making sure you have someone else there who can hold that space for you if you know that challenging things are going to come up for you to kind of move through. Okay, so let's talk about what creating a ceremonial space looks like and how you can do this in a very intentional way rather than just doing what I did back in college and not putting any thought into this experience or what I wanted to make it. So I'll walk you through what I did this most recent time. First, I felt the call to work with psilocybin again. And once I felt that call, I sat with myself to really get clear on why that was coming up and to understand why I even wanted to do it. And for me, especially, I really, really sat with myself and asked myself, am I using this to escape my reality or to further dive into my reality and expand my consciousness around what is currently going on and to see things from different perspectives and help me move through what I'm currently experiencing? Personally, for me, that's very, very important that I do that because my my number one coping mechanism or trauma response that I learned as a child and probably from past lives too is escapism. I've done a lot of work around that, but it's definitely still that initial response that feels the safest when things come up in my life that feel uncomfortable. Like my first response that I want to take action on is to just dip the fuck out and escape and like physically remove myself and go take a trip somewhere or move to a different state or whatever. And I have done those things. And I don't regret any of that because, you know, it's all brought me to where I am right now, which is exactly where I'm supposed to be. But I am definitely very, very conscious of that trauma response, especially when it comes to psychedelics or any type of mind-altering substance. I really want to make sure I'm not trying to escape my reality, but I'm actually trying to sink more fully into the present and more fully into acceptance for what is currently showing up and using the medicine to open me up to other ways of interacting with my reality that are going to be more supportive and more beneficial. So that was my first step, was really getting clear on where this call was coming from and making sure that it was coming from a place that was empowering and supportive rather than me just trying to escape my reality, because I did have a few things going on in my life that were presenting some more like challenging emotions that I was moving through. And so again, I wanted to really make sure I wasn't trying to escape those things, but was actually using this to dive into those things and like really work through them. And I will say too, especially with mushrooms, it's such an intelligent, wise medicine that I truly believe even if you are going into it trying to escape something that is going on for you, I don't even actually think that would work, because truly you receive whatever you need from the medicine. And if you're trying to run away from something, I guarantee you that exact thing is going to be exactly what comes up during your experience. So, you know, I probably couldn't even really escape what was going on if I wanted to, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't even approaching it from that energy just for me and my own personal journey. Like, I wouldn't feel good knowing that I was going into something trying to just escape life and what's going on. So I set my intentions, and then I focused on preparing my physical environment. So I decided I was just going to do this at home in my room where I feel safe, you know, especially because I was doing this by myself. So I wasn't wanting to like go out in public somewhere. I cleaned my entire room. I opened all the windows. I smudged everything. I, you know, kind of like reset the energy in my space. I showered and reset my own energy. I made sure that I had eaten something so I wasn't completely like doing this on an empty stomach. And then I sat down at my altar with the medicine. I pulled a few cards to kind of help me solidify my intentions and give me something to really like focus on. I called in my guides, I asked for protection, I asked for healing, and just asked to be open to whatever I was meant to receive for my highest and best. And then I expressed gratitude for the medicine and for all of the healing that it was going to bring me. I lit a candle and I just kind of sat there for a few minutes and grounded my energy and made sure that I felt super present and very centered within myself and very clear on, again, my intentions and why I was doing this. And I put on some music that felt really good and expansive and just made sure that the vibe was set. You know, like the vibe, the environment, again, is so important. So I made sure everything was good to go. And then, yeah, I went into the experience. And like I said, it was one of the most special things that I've experienced so far. It felt like such a gift for me because I went into this experience knowing that life recently has been asking me to soften and to sink more fully into my divine feminine and to receive more fully. And it's so funny because I've been having that conversation a lot with some of my close friends about how I need to soften, I want to soften, but also feeling kind of frustrated because there was this part of me that was like, I'm already softened, like I already receive, I already am in my divine feminine, like how much more can I possibly do that? And this experience, I laugh because this experience really showed me like, nah, bitch, you were not actually that softened. You actually were not allowing yourself to receive that much. You were actually trying to do all the things. And it wasn't until my friends pointed it out to me that it really clicked how much change I have experienced since the beginning of this year. And I'm a Capricorn, okay? So I tend to just put my head down and move forward and do the things, and I'm taking care of everything. Oh my God, there's a hummingbird like right outside my window. Oh, it's so cute. Okay, bye. It flew away. That was so cool. We literally made eye contact. But yeah, I can definitely have the tendency to just keep moving forward and doing the things. And it can be hard to take time to slow down and pause and reflect and just be aware of everything that I just moved through and experienced and appreciate all the transformation that I just went through. And I've gotten a lot better at this, but I am realizing that there is still so much more room to grow in this area. And again, like I said, it wasn't until my friends pointed it all out to me. They were like, dude, in like the last 3 months, you left a serious relationship, you moved out, you moved into a completely new environment, you left your old job, you started a new job, you've got new people in your life, you're looking for your more like stable permanent home, so you're looking to move again and adjust to a new environment again. And they're like pointing out all of these things that have shifted, like really big fucking things that have shifted in my life in the last 3 months, like back to back, one after the other. And they're like, and you're still trying to do more and like still trying to make things happen by a certain time. And I was like, oh fuck. You're right. I have been through a lot of change and a lot of upheaval and a lot of death, things ending, and rebirth, new beginnings, new cycles. And that's not even to go into like all of the internal things that you can't see in my physical reality, but just all of the things, all of the transformation that has taken place within me, which is like insane to think about as well. As soon as I dropped into this experience, and I will say too, like, I think this happens for a lot of people, but especially for me in particular, I notice when I do psilocybin, I am instantly dropped into my heart. Like, I can't even avoid it. I can't fight it. It is like instantly heart space activated. Boom. Like we are fully in there. And so whatever is going on in my heart in that present moment, like I feel it to the fucking maximum and I love it. I love it so much because me being in my heart feels really natural to me. I am a very like feminine leaning person, and I mean that in like the energetic sense. Like, yes, I'm a woman, but we all have masculine and feminine energy. And while I've been taught to be more in my masculine energy by society and just like how we operate in this world, which is a very masculine world, being in my feminine feels so much more nurturing and safe and me. Like, it just feels more me. So when I'm able to fully drop into my heart space, it feels so fucking good. But it also brings up so many emotions. And so I didn't even really realize how much I wasn't softening and how much I wasn't allowing myself to receive and slow down and rest until I dropped into this experience and dropped into my heart. And I was like, oh, fuck. This is what being soft feels like. Oh, this is what mothering myself feels like. This is what fully being present with my heart feels like. And it was really eye-opening and really, really beautiful, because sometimes we think we're doing the thing and we're actually not. And so it was definitely an eye-opener for me to be like, oh, this is what receiving can feel like. This is what feeling supported feels like. Okay. I posted something on my story on Instagram about this morning, but one of the biggest things that came through for me was kind of within the realm of like softening and receiving and being more in my divine feminine. I was able to see how I still have this sort of like hard exterior that I present to the world. And I know that it's there because I feel like I need it to protect myself and protect my heart. And, you know, like I've learned to do that through getting hurt. And then we all do this. We all build up these walls. And I've worked through that a lot, but I was able to see how that there's still a wall there. There's still this tough exterior. There's this way that I want people to view me. And that is this way of like, I've always got my shit together. I'm always on it. I'm always getting it done. If there's something that needs to be solved, I will figure it out. If someone needs something, I got them. If something needs to get done, I've got it. And I very much am that person in my life, in the way that I show up in my relationships. I'm that person that's like, you need something, I've got you. Like, you need support, let me hold you. You need help figuring this out, like let's figure it out together. And I fucking love that about myself. It's just naturally who I am, and I care so deeply about the people in my life. And I know that I'm the type of person who, you know, it can take a little bit of time to like feel like people really get to know me, because I have that sort of like sometimes colder exterior, and it takes me a little bit to like feel safe with someone and really let them in. But once I let people in, it's like you're in and I will take care of you and I will nurture you and love you, and like I got you. I will be there for you whenever you need me. And that's like a very intense, deep love that I have for the people in my life, and loyalty. And so it's like I only have so much of that to go around. Like I do have to be discerning about who I give that to. So I think that's part of it. But there's also this part of it that's coming from fear, and I'm trying to protect myself. And during this experience, I feel like I broke through a lot of that, and I realized I don't need to protect myself from anything because I'm always protected. I reached this point of clarity that felt so deeply anchored in me, where I was just like, no matter what happens to me, no matter what leaves my life, no matter what comes in, no matter what happens to me, I am so good. Like, I am so good. And I truly felt that to my core. And like, I still feel it now. It's like that, I don't know, it's like this incredible deep trust in the master plan of life and why I'm here and what I'm meant to experience. And so I just trust so fully that I will always be okay. And so if that is my truth and I will always be okay in every moment, there's nothing I need to protect myself from. There is no wall that needs to be there. And actually that wall is probably just blocking me from being more fully myself and also from experiencing whatever I'm meant to experience. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to have those experiences. I want to feel all of the things. I want to have the full human experience. I don't want like a lukewarm, mediocre experience where I'm only allowing myself to feel a little bit. Like, I want to feel it all fully, because I think that's where the most growth and expansion happens. That's where we meet the divine, is when we are feeling the full spectrum of being human. And it was really cool during this experience because I was sitting there, you know, when you're on psilocybin, or at least for me, like, I need to talk things out loud. And because I was alone, there was no one to talk to. So I was 100% talking to myself. So I'm sitting there talking all this stuff through. And all of a sudden I felt this and kind of saw this like film be removed from me. I don't know how else to explain it. It just was like this film had been like placed over me. And then all of a sudden I just felt it like just kind of like evaporate away. And it felt like that wall, or at least a layer of that wall, just like disintegrating. And so I was sitting with that, and I really came to this place where I realized I don't need that wall anymore. It's actually not serving me, and it's not going to help me get where I want to go. It's not going to help me have the kind of relationships that I want to have. I realized that I was still carrying this belief that asking for love, wanting love, expressing love makes me weak, which logically I know that's not true, but I realized there was a part of me, even if it was just a small part of me, there was still a part of me that was clinging to that and kind of using that to, again, protect myself. And so that came up for me. I was able to release that and just kind of laugh at it because it felt so untrue, actually. I was like, wait, I don't even actually believe that anymore. Why am I still carrying that? And it feels really empowering now after that experience to sink into the softness and to continue keeping my heart open, even when, like, even just in the last few days, I've experienced things where, you know, I've wanted to close my heart off and get defensive or be cold or pull away or not be vulnerable. And I think one of the biggest things, at least, that I'm moving through and learning right now is how to keep my heart open and stay soft, especially in those moments when I don't fucking want to because it feels scary and uncomfortable. But it's so much more rewarding when I can keep my heart open, and it feels so much more authentic. Like, I want to live my life from my heart. I really, really do. And I'm learning how to do that more. And it's not easy, but it just creates a much more beautiful experience when you can live from your heart and be really connected to that space. Another thing that came up was something that I shared in the previous episode about just fully sinking into how deserving and worthy I am. And I know I won't talk about this too much because I talked about it in the previous episode, but my guides came through really fucking strong during this experience, and they really wanted me to understand how deserving I am and how they were like, it is time to let go of doubt. Like, you don't doubt yourself nearly as much as you used to, but any lingering doubt has got to go. And I do feel like I was able to sink into this softer side of myself that understands it's okay to want love, it's okay to ask for love, it's okay to express love, and I really want to embody that in my daily life more and more, even in just like simple things like telling the people in my life that I love them more often and like expressing that more, because again, it's like life is so short. I don't want to have regrets where I'm like, I wish I had told that person that I loved them more, or that I really appreciated this thing about them, or whatever the case may be. So I'm learning to use my voice more in that way as well. Something else that came up, so kind of how I was talking about earlier, how I definitely play this role of being the person who's like, I got you, I got this, I got it. I know it's about myself, and it's also been reflected back to me by people who are close to me in my life. Like, they're like, you're just so reliable. Like, I know if I need something, I know I can turn to you. I know if something needs to get done, like, you will get it done. And so, again, like I said, I love this about myself, and I don't ever want to lose that, and I don't think I will, because it's just who I am. But there also needs to be more of a balance in my life where I'm supporting, but I'm also supported. And during the experience, I was kind of starting to feel a little bit sad, because I was just like, I'm so tired. Like, I'm just so tired. And I just want someone to step in and be like, no, I got you. Like, I can hold you and where you're at. My guides were like, hold up. First of all, you've got yourself. Like, that is first and foremost. Never forget that you have got yourself, and you can always continue to cultivate that. But what came through really strong as well was how supported I am, and we all are, by life, by the universe, by our guides. If you believe you have guides, then amazing. If you don't, that's okay. You still have them. They're still supporting you, whether you believe it or not. So it was just this reminder of how deeply supported I am, and I was able to really fully surrender. Like, there are some things in my life that feel very wobbly, including my home, including my career, and like what I'm doing with my life. No big deal. And before this experience, I was trying to like use my mind to figure everything out and like logically make sense of what I was going to do and blah, blah, blah. You know, the human things that we do, trying to figure out and make sense of everything. And then when I dropped into this experience, I was able to fully surrender and just be like, you know what? I am done. Like, I do not want to have to figure things out anymore. I don't want to have to do this on my own. I'm just tired and I'm not doing it anymore. So, universe, I trust that you know what's best for me. Like, I think I know what's best for me, but at the end of the day, I don't have the same perspective that the divine has, right? Like, I am still not able to fully comprehend all of the possibilities and potentials. And so it's like, I have a feeling as far as what's best for me, but I don't actually know. I trust the universe way more to know what's best for me. So from that perspective, I was like, I am just going to be present and stay open and focus on taking care of myself. And whatever happens is going to be the best thing for me. And I fully, fully trust that. And when I feel called to take inspired action, I will do that. And when I don't, I will rest and take care of myself. That felt super freeing, to just fully sink into surrender and be like, there's actually nothing that I need to figure out. I'm just driving myself crazy. And it's all just a story. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but psilocybin for me has really helped me access deeper layers of love for myself as well as other people and just for life in general. But this particular experience, I don't know if it's because I did it alone or just because of like where I'm at and what I needed, I really, really, really was able to feel like the deepest love I've ever felt for myself. And it was just this feeling of like, I am all of it. Like, I'm all of it. I'm all of the things, and I can do literally anything, and I am deserving of it all. And I just felt so proud of myself for the woman that I am and the woman that I'm becoming and how far I've come. Even in just the last few months, like, I look at how much transformation I've gone through, and it blows my mind. And I know a lot of it, like, again, it's so internal, and it's been a very like private process. So a lot of people looking from the outside in wouldn't even really probably notice, but that's okay. Like, it's my private experience and journey, and I know what I've experienced and moved through. I was also sitting with some discomfort that came up during the experience around relationships. And there was this story that I could like see the story in front of me, but I wasn't attached to it and I wasn't identifying with it anymore. And it was the story of not being enough, right? Like not being good enough. And in the past, I would have just like latched right onto that story and made it about me. And it was like this time I could see the story there. I acknowledged it and had awareness of it, but I was so not in the story, if that makes sense. Again, it was one of those things that I just kind of laughed at because it felt so untrue. I was like, of course I'm enough. I'm more than enough. And so I feel really proud of myself even right now, just for how, God, even just in the last like year, for how I have leaned into change. And that's something that I am proud of myself always, because I've never been someone to run away from change. I've never been someone to avoid taking risks when it feels really aligned. It doesn't mean I'm not scared. I'm usually fucking terrified, but I've always leaned into it. And I'm really proud of myself for moving through so much change with such grace and poise and love and trust, and like really being in a space of knowing that the change is supporting me, even if at the time it doesn't make sense. So all of this came up for me, and it was just really beautiful to sit with all of it. I'm just so grateful because my heart feels so open and so soft, and I just am like, I have so much love to give, and it starts with giving that love to myself. That's another thing that came up, was I'm really being asked to learn how to mother myself more deeply, as well as how to mother others. But of course, there has to be harmony. Like a huge theme in my life is harmony. I'm like, I want harmony in every aspect of my life. I want harmony in my home, in my career, in my relationships, with myself, in my routines and rituals. Like, I just want harmony. And anything that doesn't feel harmonious, I just ask that it be moved out of my life. Yeah, and I truly feel like I don't even know like how to put it into words. It's just like the amount of genuine love I feel for myself it's so potent, and it's so like, I don't even have words. I'm finally in this place in my life where I fully love myself and like every aspect of myself, even the parts that maybe they're not the best by whoever's standards, like whatever that even means. But it's like I can just sit with all parts of myself, even the shadow sides or the wounded parts or, whatever, and just accept it and love it and be with it and not try to change it or feel shame around it. And I think that's part of the power of using psychedelics in a very intentional way. It's so healing, and it connects you to that deep love for yourself. And of course, you don't need anything outside of yourself to tap into that. However, I do think sometimes for some people, if you feel called, psychedelics are a way to get there a little bit quicker. But of course, I always say everything you need has been and always will be within you. So you don't need anything outside of yourself to tap into this love. So just, keep that in mind. But I do feel like I am in a place finally where nothing can shake me because I have that love for myself. And I think that's why I can fully believe that no matter what happens, I will be really good, because it's like, I love myself. On another note, something else that came up during this experience, sort of more towards the beginning, a lot of things came up, but something different than on the note of, self-love and worthiness and all of that. But I've been thinking a lot about career and work and my relationship to work and work structures and expectations that exist in the world. And I know that I am here to, for lack of a better term, I know that I'm here to burn shit to the ground when it comes to work and career and what we see in the world currently. And I know that I'm meant to create something that is completely new. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I have an idea, but also astrologically, my house of career for the next like year and a half is super activated. So it all just makes sense. Like it's all connected, right? Like it's all connected. It all comes together. And so that's something that came through really strong too, was just, I look at how people work and how we've been taught to work, and I'm just like, really? Like this cannot be the way it's supposed to be. Like this cannot be as good as it gets. There has got to be a better way to do this. And I think part of my purpose is creating that better way, whatever that looks like. I also know that my career and purpose are meant to be one and the same in this lifetime. So that feels scary, but also very exciting and expansive. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes as far as career goes over the next year and a half, especially for me. So I don't know, man. I'm excited to lean into that. And I'm definitely the type of person who is kind of always like questioning the way things are being done, and if it really is the best way, or if maybe there's a better way. And if it's not feeling good and I'm like, there has to be a better way to do this, I'm definitely the type of person who is like, let's just fucking burn this shit to the ground and like rebuild something that's better. I also had a lot come up around home. If you don't know, I'm currently in the process of looking for a new home and looking for a space that is going to be fully mine. I've never had a home that was just mine. I've always, obviously, like, I grew up living with family and moved out for college. I've always had roommates since college. So the fact that this next space is going to solely be mine feels really amazing. Like it's something I've wanted for a really long time and I've never had. But I was also sitting with a lot of things around home that felt uncomfortable. I actually didn't even realize until recently that I have a lot of shit around home because I never felt super stable, or my home never felt really consistent. In a lot of ways, it didn't feel safe. And I always kind of felt like I had to go hide in my home in order to feel comfortable and safe. And I won't get into like why, it doesn't really matter. I didn't even realize I was suppressing all of that stuff until literally a few weeks ago. And this stuff started coming up as I've been looking for a new home. Life was like, well, bitch, you gotta look at this stuff first and work through this before you even feel deserving of having your own place and having it the way you want it. So a lot of that came up, and I cried a lot during this recent experience, and it was really healing tears. Crying for me on psilocybin always feels really beautiful and really good and really releasing. And I was just mainly crying for past versions of myself, honestly, because like the amount of love that I feel for past versions of myself, and kind of just wishing I could give her a hug and like tell her everything's gonna be okay, and just forgiving certain things, forgiving, like I was able to forgive some people in my family. My experience consisted of a lot of other things, but some things I want to keep just for myself. So I think that's all that I want to share. And of course, there's the like more trippy aspects of it. Like I was having really fantastic visuals. I have these amazing oracle cards. They're very like cosmic looking, and some of them look like Lemuria or Atlantis or like ancient Egypt, but in outer space. And I remember there were a few moments where like the images literally looked like they were coming to life, and I felt like I was all of a sudden like in that place. And so of course that's the more like fun, trippy aspect of an experience like this. So there's all of that too. And I just like laughed a ton. I cried a lot. So it is a full spectrum experience, and of course your experience is going to be different than mine. Every experience is going to be different than the previous one. So it's just always best to, set intentions, but go into it without any expectations of like how it needs to be. Again, it's like releasing control. Just trust that it's going to be whatever you and your soul needs. And as long as you're setting those intentions and making sure you're in the right environment with the right people, it's going to be amazing. That's it. I, again, will say that although I can share with you things that came up for me and kind of try to explain what happened, it really is one of those things that you just have to experience for yourself. Words can only go so far when we're talking about these sort of more like spiritual, cosmic feeling experiences. So if you do feel called, I would get clear on why you're feeling the call. And if it feels like something supportive for you, then why not try it? If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Again, like I'm by no means an expert on this at all. I've shared with you my experiences briefly, so I hope that helps. If anything, I hope that this helps you see how healing something like this can be when you do it with intention, because I do think this is a tool that is accessible to us, that we've kind of been taught to think of either in a negative light or think of it just as like this fun, crazy experience, when really it can be so much more than that. So if you made it through this entire thing, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Again, if you have other questions, you can message me on Instagram. I love talking about this stuff, so let me know. And it is my hope and wish that the love I've learned to feel and cultivate for myself is something that everybody can feel at some point in their life. So I'll leave it on that note. I love you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. And that wraps up another episode of Soul Speak. Thank you so much for being here. I'm truly grateful for your presence. To connect with me further and find all of my information, just go ahead and click through the show notes. There you will find my Instagram, website, and anything else mentioned in the episode. Don't forget to subscribe for future episodes, and if you want to show your support for the show, I would be so grateful. You can leave a rating and review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, or leave a rating on Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you later.